Welcome to my next Lost. Season 5 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important. If you aren't caught up to the point where I am every watching or watching Lost, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention, as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, if you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already seen the TV series of Lost 3 other times. It's in my top 5 favorite TV series of all time, as a matter of fact. Want to rewatch it and let it resonate a little bit, but I'm not the only one that's currently watching Lost. The legendary Crazy Coffin Man, who you see in my comment section for Dexter, Dexter New Blood, Dexter Original Sin, Lucifer, Breaking Bad, and a few physical media related videos, is actually watching Lost the very first time, so he's in for a real treat. So join us on the journey and let's discuss this awesome and amazing show in the comments section. However, I don't want to see any spoilers past this episode in this video. So with all that said, this will be Lost Season 5, Episode 14. The title of this episode is called The Variable, and this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watch the episode. So we go to a slight flashback of Desmond after being shot by Ben. He's rushed to the hospital by paramedics to undergo surgery. A desperate Penny is told by the ER doctor to stay outside with her son Charlie. She's approached by Eloise Hawking, who comments that Charlie is his father's, has his father's hair, and Eloise reveals that she knows Desmond and that his injury is her son's fault. Penny asks Eloise if her son is Ben, but Eloise replies instead that her son is Daniel. Then we have Daniel arriving on the island and is greeted by Miles, what we saw in the last episode. Daniel tells Miles that he is back due to his discovery in Ann Arbor of a photo of the new recruits showing that Jack, Kate, and Hurley have returned to the island. He demands to be taken to Jack's house. Miles complies. Once at Jack's house, Daniel Faraday frantically questions him on how he returned to the island. Jack mentions a plane and says that Daniel's mother, Eloise Hawking, persuaded him to get on the plane. Daniel asks Jack if Eloise spoke about destiny, to which Jack says yes. Daniel tells Jack that his mother was wrong and that Jack does not belong there, whether meaning on the island at all. Back to a flashback, a young Daniel Faraday is playing a piano at his home. His mother, a middle-aged Eloise Hawking, suddenly appears in the doorway watching him play. Daniel asks her opinion of the music, and she tells him that it is wonderful. However, she chastises him for wasting his time on frivolous stuff such as music. She claims that he has a scientific mind, which he must dedicate entirely to science and mathematics. She claims that it is her job to keep him on the path and that there is no time for distractions. Daniel claims that he can make time, but she disagrees, closing the piano. Back to the island, Miles agrees to Faraday's request to drive him to the Orchid to run an errand, leaving behind an inquisitive Jack. Jack knocks on Sawyer's door to inform him Faraday has returned and headed to the Orchid. Sawyer responds that he is too busy to help. He is persuaded by Juliet to explain his predicament. Phil, tied up in the closet, is in possession of surveillance tape incriminating Sawyer and Kate in their attempt to save Ben's life by taking him to the hospital's camp. Faraday and Miles end up at the Orchid station just in time to witness the arrival of Pierre Chang. Leaving Miles in the Jeep, Faraday follows Chang and Eric inside, and a worker tells Daniel that he needs to wear a hard hat. Daniel overhears Chang's discussion with Tony, the foreman, regarding the danger of drilling deeper into the rock and potentially releasing dangerous energy. Daniel walks in, bumping into an impatient Chang who is leaving, and has a brief exchange with Tony, who is highly skeptical of Chang's theories about space and time. Daniel then approaches Chang, who remembers Faraday's arrival to the island with LaFleur. Daniel explains that it is necessary to begin evacuating the island as the magnetic energy unleashed by the Dharma construction work has caused injuries. When Chang responds skeptically and insists that the energy has been contained, they board the Orchid elevator to surface, and Daniel explains that in 6 hours, a catastrophic accident will occur at the Swan Station. Pierre Chang demands to know why Daniel considers himself qualified to make such a prediction, and Daniel reveals that he has arrived from the future. Faraday follows Chang outside the orchid, where Chang accuses him of having a little fun at his expense for overhearing his comments about time travel. Daniel produces notes from his journal as evidence he is speaking in good faith, but is interrupted by Miles. Daniel catches both off guard by revealing that Miles is Chang's son. Miles denies this. Chang tells Daniel, "Please stay away from me," and departs in his Dharma van. Miles then confronts Daniel about the reveal, who explains that it is only going to get Chang to do what he is supposed to do. Back to a flashback, Faraday is graduating, receiving a degree of Doctor of Philosophy at Oxford. As he walks out of the college with Teresa Spencer, they are met by Eloise Hawkins, who coldly responds to Teresa's repeated attempts of bonding with her and requests to have lunch alone with Daniel. Teresa complies despite Daniel's protest, leaving Daniel and Eloise to go to a curry restaurant. Daniel is hurt by Eloise's rudeness to Teresa because she is his girlfriend. Eloise tells him that he has no time for women and that he must focus entirely on his work. Daniel mentions that he is the youngest doctor ever to graduate from Oxford, and he has received a 1.5 euros research grant from Charles Whitmore. I don't know how much that is in American money. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. Eloise relents, apologizing to Daniel, and tells him that she is not there to fight with him. She stands to leave, but not before giving him a wrapped gift. After she leaves, Daniel opens it. It is a leather journal, the one he's been writing in. Back to the island, Jack, Kate, Sawyer, Juliet, Jin, and Hurley meet in Sawyer and Juliet's home to discuss their options. According to Sawyer, they must either leave the island by submarine before they are caught, or head into the jungle to start from square one. Jin refuses to leave as long as there is a possibility he might be reunited with Sun, and Hurley supports staying as well. Before they can continue their conversation, they are interrupted by the arrival of Miles and Daniel, welcoming to the meeting Twitchy. I love when Sawyer calls Faraday Twitchy. That's freaking hilarious. Daniel asks where he can find the hostiles and explains that his mother is among them, and furthermore that she is their only hope of getting back to where they belong. And then back to our flashback, Faraday is watching a news report regarding the wreckage of Oceanic Flight 815 being discovered by the Christine thing. He begins crying about it, and when asked why he is crying by his caretaker, he replies that he doesn't know why he's crying. Then Faraday receives a visitor, Charles Whitmore. The two discuss Whitmore's grant, the following research, and Daniel's dismissal from Oxford. Daniel shows remorse over Teresa, mentioning that he tested it on himself before her. Whitmore notices Daniel crying and asks if he said something to upset him. Faraday replies it is because of the discovery of the Flight 815's wreckage, and that he doesn't know why it's bothering him so much, other than it's a sad situation. And Whitmore replies that they aren't dead because he faked the wreckage. He feels secure in telling this to Daniel because, due to Daniel's recently developed memory issues, Daniel will forget the entire meeting. Whitmore offers Faraday a job working on the Kahana, the freighter ship, and going to the island, which he claims will heal Daniel Faraday's mental problems. When Daniel comments on how similar Whitmore sounds to Eloise, Whitmore remarks that he and Eloise are old friends. Sawyer refuses to assist Faraday, but Jack enlists Kate's help in taking Daniel to the hospital's camp. Sawyer calls Faraday H.G. Wells. Juliet provides the code 141717 to the sonar fence and makes the case that they should help Faraday as it is over for us here anyway. Sawyer argues that Jack is making a mistake and that he, Jin, Hurley, and Juliet will meet them at the beach when their plan inevitably fails. Kate and Jack discuss how to obtain weapons, and Faraday tells them to go on without him and he will catch up. Daniel then approaches a young Charlotte who is playing on a swing set nearby. She tells Daniel that she isn't allowed to eat chocolate before dinner and introduces herself as Daniel assures her he won't tell. He tearfully tells Charlotte that she and her mother must leave the island with Dr. Chang, as he explains that he tried to avoid telling her this because he did not believe he would be able to change things, but hopes that maybe he can. Kate, Jack, and Faraday are arming themselves near a motor pool, and they are interrupted by Rosinski and two other Dharma workers. When Rosinski sees their weapons, he accuses Daniel of lying about the group's intentions, and a firefight ensues when Daniel tries to make a getaway. Daniel is grazed in the neck by a bullet, and Rosinski is shot in the arm. As Jack, Kate, and Daniel make their way to the Jeep, Jack opens fire on a fuel tank, causing a tremendous explosion. They escape as the dust settles, and Rosinski calls for someone to sound the alarm. Back to our flashback, Faraday plays the piano when he is visited by Eloise. She asks Faraday if he has been offered a job, to which he firmly replies, but states that he is incapable of doing the job due to his memory loss. Eloise eventually persuades Daniel, however, by telling him that going to the island will make her proud of him, so he eventually agrees to do so. Upon arrival at the sonar fence, Jack treats Daniel's neck wound as Kate enters the code provided by Juliet. Daniel reminds Jack that 1977 is now their present, and as such they would do well to remember that they are still at risk of injury or death regardless of their presence in the future. Juliet and Sawyer are packing to leave for the beach when they are interrupted by the alarm. Angry and injured Rosinski and his assistants burst into Sawyer's house and inform Sawyer of the situation, much to Rosinski's horror, quickly discover the bond and gagged Phil. Enraged by he forces Sawyer and Juliet to surrender at gunpoint. When Jack, Daniel, and Kate stop at a creek to rest, Jack asks Daniel to explain his intentions. Daniel reveals his knowledge of the impending disaster caused by a massive energy release at the Swan Station. He explains that as a result of the installation they know as the Hatch will be built as a precautionary measure to contain his energy and prevent future incidents. Over the next 20 years, he explains, it will be necessary for the Dharma to keep this energy at bay by pressing a button. Ultimately, Desmond's failure to do so will cause the crash of Oceanic Flight 815. Daniel tells Jack and Kate that his studies of physics have revealed the relationship between the constants in the equation and the variables. The variables, he says, are people, specifically their choices, and free will may allow them to change their destiny. Daniel then reveals his intention to set things right by detonating a hydrogen bomb in the attempt to negate the catastrophic energy release, therefore preventing the events that led to Oceanic Flight 815's crash. Eloise apologizes for her son's actions. Penny asks Eloise if Desmond will be alright, but Eloise says she does not know that. For the first time in a long time, she does not know what will happen next. Soon afterward, a nurse approaches Penny and tells her that Desmond is in recovery room, implying the surgery was successful. Penny leaves with little Charlie with the nurse and rushes to meet Desmond, who reminds her of his promise that he would never leave her. Eloise leaves. As she exits the hospital, she is approached by Charles Whitmore, who asks about Desmond's condition. She replies that Desmond is fine and that his daughter is inside the hospital, suggesting that he go in and talk with her. Whitmore remarks that he has sacrificed his relationship with Penny. Eloise replies that angrily that Whitmore knows nothing about sacrifice. She had to send her own son to the island. Whitmore retorts that Daniel is his son as well, and Eloise slaps Whitmore across the face and leaves. So Daniel's parents are Eloise Hawking and Charles Whitmore. Interesting. With Jack, Daniel, and Kate, I've already read that part. Jack, Daniel, and Kate arrive undetected at the hostiles' camp, where Daniel fires 2 warning shots into the ground and demands to speak with Eloise, or Ellie. Richard Alpert appears to recognize Daniel, but insists that Eloise is not there. Daniel asks Richard at gunpoint where the hydrogen bomb is buried, and Richard attempts to talk him down. Daniel is shot from behind by Eloise Hawking. Bleeding out, Daniel tells Eloise, You knew this was going to happen, but you sent me here anyway. When it is apparent that Eloise does not recognize Daniel, he reveals in his dying breath that he is her son. And that's what ends this episode of Lost. So pretty good episode. We have the death of Daniel Faraday, unfortunately. He is dead. I'm going to give the episode an 8.7 out of 10. My character of the episode is going to be Faraday. Secondary character is going to be Sawyer. Of course, this isn't the last we see of Daniel Faraday. He will return. Of course, in different scenes, because, characters return on Lost all the time. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Lost and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure you Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section, interact with me and the legendary Crazy Coffee Man. What would you score the episode? What would you, or who would you give the character or characters of the episode to? And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get over 100,000 subscribers. Join the team. Share your DM support and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.